What is your perception on this specific type of odd marriage?
As a sociologist, I consider that the institution of family is the most fundamental institution for the stability of the society. It is an institution which contributes positively, according to at least one perspective in sociology, towards the socialization of children and the stabilization of adult personalities. My own perception about this specific type of odd marriage is that marriage on its own as an institution, it depends on compatibility. So whereas we can consider compatibility to be in terms of age, you can also consider compatibility in terms of psychological and emotional compatibility. So as long as there is an emotional and psychological compatibility among the couple, I consider this to be something that should be quite acceptable and not a problem. Well, the fact is that in many cases, our society thinks about various matters stereotypically. So therefore, when it comes to the institution of marriage, these stereotypes are again very much applicable. When it comes to this concept of odd marriages in which the husband is quite young and the wife is quite older than the husband, I think that the society generally considers these type of marriages to be involving some type of material benefits. Perhaps the dominant interpretation is not that there is some emotional correlation, there is some emotional attachment, but rather that this is being done because of gaining some kind of material benefits. Perhaps the dominant interpretation might be that the wife is somebody rich and the gentleman will be able to gain some kind of benefits from such a relationship. It's actually quite odd because in the reverse way, some segments of our society are able to accept the idea that the husband can be quite old and the wife can be quite young, but the reverse of this is not true. So I think generally speaking, this has to do with the stereotypes that our society has in terms of thinking.
Do you think most odd marriages of this type last longer as compared to your basic marriage where men are older than the women?
I think this is quite a difficult question. Reason is because in Pakistan we do not have a lot of empirical evidence about what is really happening deep down in the family structures. Interestingly speaking, the census is also something that does not provide us a lot of knowledge and insight into family dynamics, apart from some very fundamental information. In my own understanding of what is happening in the society, I think that it is not necessary that such a relationship is going to lead to problems. The concept of marital happiness is something which is which can be equally applicable for the flip side as well. We see, generally speaking, in our observation that the divorce rate is increasing, and this is also involving couples where both the partners may be of a similar age, or for that matter when the husband is older and has a younger wife. So generally speaking, I think that as long as the emotional compatibility, the psychological compatibility is present, such a couple should not be experiencing any problems. But if there were some material benefits that had to be gained, or for that matter, if there was any kind of imposition in the marriage, if this was, let's suppose, an arranged marriage which was involving some woman, may be considered to have a greater decision-making power. It may be understood that she has more experience of life, and therefore men, if they have some typical patriarchal attitudes, may not like this kind of, so to speak, a kind of dictation that they get from their wives. So I think this is something which leads to these feelings of inferiority among some men.
Why do you think some men might feel inferior to the idea of marrying an older woman?
Well, in terms of sociology, the concept of age has to do with power. So in many cases, whereas there are other factors also which are related to the factor of power, for example, the idea of class, or for that matter, the idea of somebody being from the ethnic majority. The concept of age also contributes a lot to the power dynamics. Now, when we take a look at the institution of marriage, it has to do with the idea of a relation. This relation can very easily be seen as a relation of power dynamics. So the fact is that some people, as in some husbands, if they feel inferior in such a type of a relationship, then firstly I think that they perhaps do not have that type of emotional and psychological compatibility with their partner that I talked about in the reply to an earlier answer. They are considering themselves to be inferior because the older partner, which in this case is going to be an older woman, may be considered to have a greater decision-making power. It may be understood that she has more experience of life, and therefore men, if they have some typical patriarchal attitudes, may not like this kind of, so to speak, a kind of dictation that they get from their wives.